I think you guys should see it very soon, I hope. Let me know with a nod. Okay, thanks,
Yes.
Susan. Okay, welcome to our panel. It's called The Pandemic Pivot. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about how we, like many of you, all of you, pivoted through the last 14 months of this crazy world that we're living in right now. And hopefully we'll even get to talk a little bit about how we're going to walk out of that. So I'm going to start with introductions. We have a diverse panel today. And I'll let Jason start us out with introducing himself and what he does here at Pittsburg State University.
Absolutely. I am Jason Clementson. I'm an assistant professor in teaching and leadership. Specifically, my area is educational leadership. I teach and advise in the Master's in Educational Leadership program. Just finished up my second year at Pittsburg State. Prior to that, I spent 11 years as a high school principal.
Hi, I'm Susan De La Sega. I am the director of our Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. I just came into this role in June, but I've been, or rather in January, I've been at Pittsburg State for nearly 16 years and have been involved in online learning for nearly 20, even before coming to Pittsburg State. So that's kind of my area of expertise. Our center provides professional development training for faculty in the areas of best pedagogy for online and face-to-face delivery. And we also have 2 electronic technicians, which I think one may be on the call, so I'll give him a shout out, that help with the audio-visual equipment in our classrooms.
Thanks, Susan. I'll go next. We're doing things in alphabetical order. So I'm Angela Neria. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Pittsburg State, and I'll be speaking today from that perspective, from that technical perspective, and also from that leadership perspective. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Shanker. I'm an undergrad student here at Pitt State. I'm studying business management with a minor in human resource development. And I also work at our student IT help desk. We're called the Gorilla Geeks. So I have both sides. I have the student side, then also the help desk side for the perspective here.
Thanks, Rachel. And our moderator is going to lead us through. So Tim, if you would introduce yourself and also tell your role here at Pitt State, because you might jump in and help us out a little bit during some of the questions that we go through.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Tim Pearson. My team and I look after the data center, our voice and data networks, and IT security for central IT at Pitt State. And we also look after some of the remote access to applications tools that our students use and have been using since the pandemic. So if there are any geeks in the audience, I'm the guy who can answer geeky questions.
Exactly. So one thing that we're going to ask is we are going to put a quick little survey in the chat and ask you all to take it. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that link into the chat, and then we're going to close down the screen share and just visit. Tim's going to go through the questions with our group, and we would love to keep the chat alive. So please feel free to make comments and ask questions in that area as we go along. Tim, I'll give it to you.
Okay, very good. Well, the first question is, what was the first thing you did to prepare for online learning and working last March? All of us got that dumped on our heads pretty much simultaneously, and we were all scrambling. So what were the priority issues and then the secondary and tertiary things that you did to prepare for that scramble to online back in March of last year? And who on the panel wants to start?
Tim, I can start because for me, it wasn't much of a change right off the bat because I teach in an online program. So in the spring, when we immediately went to, we were off campus, we were digitally learning, distance learning. Not a whole lot changed for me as far as presenting information and doing things like that. What changed for me is my students are current teachers. And they were now in a situation where they were learning how to instruct students in distance learning. So I became really a help to them, a person that they would contact. Hey, how do you do this? How do you deliver online instruction? What is effective in your classroom? that I can take into my classroom with high school students or elementary students now that everybody is on Zoom, and how can we make that work? So I became kind of that sounding board to throw ideas back and forth with them. But the other thing that I had to realize as an instructor is now my students were faced with a larger task than they ever expected when they started a master's degree program. They're now doing a master's degree program. On top of that, they have their teaching jobs, which now is taking much more time than they expected. So I had to be really flexible in how I did things and my expectations of what was coming back to me, and really deadlines just kind of became optional. It kind of became a thing where get this in when you can get this in. I know you guys are under a lot of stress right now. You're trying to deal with this, which was unexpected. So I had to be flexible as an instructor in order to make this work for my students. But as far as in the springtime, for me, not a whole lot changed because I was already in an online setting.
Got it. Well, I suspect that a lot of those folks were very thrilled to have a mentor who had some skill set there that could help them. And because I'm sure there were a lot of people going, "Oh my gosh, I've not done this before. I don't even know where to start." And it's I mean, in IT, in central IT, we deal with that all the time. Somebody says, "I need this application up and running in 2 weeks," and we go, "Well, what does it do?" And having someone to be able to go to and say, "Oh, well, it's really, not that bad. Calm down. You can do it. Go here, read this, download this," those kinds of things. So I suspect that was really a great thing for your students to be able to do that. Susan, how about in the Center for Teaching and Learning?
You bet. First of all, thank you, Jason, for all your help for those teachers. I know you did a great job. And he hit on the key word. He said flexible, had to be flexible. And that's kind of where we started in the spring. We rushed in the 1 week. We had people on campus still because our students went away for spring break, but our teachers were still here. So in the spring, we just had back to back workshops available for, I think in the morning we had rolling workshops for Canvas basics. And in the afternoon we did Zoom, and we got as much face-to-face hands-on work to make sure people's laptops were up and ready to go to use Canvas and Zoom. And I think that went a long way because it was really great in one sense, because we saw some people come into our center that don't typically come here. So it was a great way for us to begin to get them to see the services that we offered. And we are really proud of a lot of our faculty who in the past online learning really scared them. And they're like, "I think I can do this now." So I think that was a good jump start in the spring, was to just get them in and say it's going to be okay. And the big key was, "And here's how you contact me once we're no longer here face to face." So that was kind of what we experienced in the spring.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. Rachel at the help desk. My guess is that you guys probably got a lot of calls with questions you hadn't been asked in the past. So can you talk about a little bit about the help desk experience?
Yeah, it was a big learning curve for all of us because, we all went online at the same time. So it was people calling saying, "How do I use Zoom? How do I use Lockdown Browser?" And we were kind of right there learning with them for some of it. Like, "Well, we're not exactly sure, but we can definitely try and help you." We just had to kind of go with the flow. And we all, like, if we knew one person was really good with Zoom already, we'd be like, "Oh, well, let me go ask them real quick." And we just had to communicate with each other really well. That was a big thing for us, was because if one person was having these issues, then probably someone else would. But it was a big change for us at the Geeks Help Desk.
Understood. Angela, any final thoughts on the initial COVID scramble?
Yeah, I think for us, from a purely IT perspective, really the first thing that I did when we kind of knew this was going to happen, I'm fortunate enough that in the CIO role at Pitt State, that person reports to the president and sits on the president's council. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of those conversations and that decision making. So it was pretty clear that we were going to vacate campus, right, and go online. And so we pulled our whole team together when we knew that when we were, 80% confident that that was going to happen. And our leadership team had reviewed our continuity of operations plans and our DR plans. I had gone through them and I pulled out what I thought was, really the things that would help us, out of those two guidebooks, prepare for this strange thing that no one had ever heard of or thought of before. So those two documents were really critical in preparing our team to deal with what was ahead. So I can't speak highly enough of our team for putting those documents together. We religiously update them every year, twice a year. We meet as a group and update them. And I'm so grateful that we have them. So the COOP plan and the DR plan really led to a twofold approach, one for clients and one for our departmental team members. And our clients, we knew that we had the technology in place that they needed to use. We knew that many of them had been trained by Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology. The faculty had been trained by them and non-faculty by us, but not everybody has. So we had lots of material out there. We had lots of links. Of course, we have a portal like all of you do with links to all of our tools, but we needed to make a spot where everything was available, not just the links to the software, but also the links to video tutorials and PDFs and all those things. So that was probably the first thing we did, is we put together this really, comprehensive but simple to use website where it was just everything you needed for working from home and learning from home. So that was critical, because again, we had the technology in place. We had Teams and Zoom and software too, which hopefully we'll talk about later, that allows us to push out remote or push out software to those remotely and use it on their own machines. It's very slick. So then the second thing we had to do was look internally at our team and make sure our team had the tools that they needed to support campus. So, live chat was in place. Did we need to increase the hours on that? Did everyone have the monitors, was everyone's camera working? Was everyone's microphone working for Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, those kinds of things? So that was the second piece of all of this. I just wanted everyone to have a comfort level working from home and not be concerned about running back and forth to campus because there were so many unknowns about safety. So those were the two approaches that we took, and they really were born out of our COOP plan and our DR plan.
Got it. Okay. Well, going forward in time a few months, we all made it through the spring 2020 semester and got our students graduated and got through that one. And then we had the summer stretching out ahead of us. All of us had summer sessions that we needed to deal with, but summer is also traditionally a time where IT deploys new systems, upgrades existing systems, and makes changes while there are fewer folks on campus that those changes might impact. So thinking about specifically the shift, the post-COVID shift, what did we do to maybe flesh out or improve upon the kind of short spur of the moment changes that we had to make in spring of 2020 to prepare for the fall 2020-2021 school year? And I guess I'll start kind of in the same order. Jason, did you alter what you had planned to tell your students or provide for your students for the fall 2020 session, or being online already, were you pretty much good to go?
Well, in the fall session, I actually teach a face-to-face course in our leadership minor. So that was the spring was business as usual pretty much for me as far as presenting material, but the fall presented a little bit of a challenge. And everybody was excited because we're back on campus. We were all in masks. We thought that would be a little bit more challenging than it was with students and everything else, but it really wasn't all that challenging. What became challenging was, okay, the first week I have all my students in class. Okay, week 2, I have somebody quarantined. Week 3, now half my class is quarantined. So now I had to pivot to a face-to-face session along with Zoom at the same time, synchronously. So that was the challenge, because at that time, the room that I was teaching in wasn't set up to really make that happen well. So I was trying to work off of a laptop with Zoom and have students that were also in the classroom at the same time. And what I found was I spent a majority of my time focusing on the students that were on Zoom, which was not fair to the people that are in the classroom who want the same material. So I had to learn how to manage both sides of it, because I had students that still expected to be in the classroom. They signed up to have a face-to-face class, and that's the way that they wanted the material presented, even though I gave them the option to, if students quarantined, everybody is welcome to join on Zoom, or you're welcome to join face-to-face. I didn't think it was fair to make everybody attend via Zoom, because like I said, that's not what they signed up for. They signed up for a face-to-face course. So I was still going to give them that option and be flexible with them to make that happen. So that was the biggest challenge, was how do I focus on the classroom at the same time I'm focusing on the students that are on Zoom. And granted, Pitt State has done a great job once we hit that. And I think a lot of instructors had the same issues and problems. And all of a sudden, our classroom started becoming updated with new cameras in the classroom, to where you didn't have to bring the laptop in. You could still really teach the class and have that video on you, so that way that you weren't focusing on one more than the other.
Got it. Thank you. And I think some of your final comments there probably mesh very seamlessly into Susan De La Sega at the Center for Teaching and Learning, and all the work that they did over the summer to try to get those classrooms prepared, and other things I'm sure that they were involved with. Susan, tell us about your summer and the things you did to prepare.
You bet. That was one of the major focuses that we did. I mentioned before, we have 2 amazing electronic technicians that work with the audiovisual equipment across campus. And they went through every classroom and evaluated, can this classroom first support audio for Zoom and then video? So we wanted to get every classroom, at least the very minimum, be able to communicate via audio synchronously for those classrooms that were trying to do that dual delivery. And then we went back through and tried to add the audio, but we ran into the same obstacles that many of you did. Was everybody else in the country was trying to get that same equipment. So unfortunately, like you all, we weren't able to get it implemented right away, but boy, our guys did a great job. The microphone systems that existed in the classrooms, they went ahead and made sure those went back through the computers, so that for that time we could at least get the audio going into Zoom. Then it was the document cameras. People needed to be able to share that document camera in that classroom, and so then they went through and tried to upgrade those and get those to work with Zoom, because we didn't have those devices set up to do that, because that had never been something we needed to do. So while that part of our department, we are a huge department of 5 people. So those 2 guys were out doing the audiovisual type analysis and set up and getting equipment ready to be ordered and installed. And the other part is the faculty training. So we began getting ready to we did a lot of training in that 1 week in the spring, but we did a ton of training in August. Faculty came back a week ahead of time. They were given an incentive. The provost office was able to give them a stipend to come, and we had 3-hour trainings in person, socially distanced, with masks, and they brought their equipment in, and we did hands-on training as much as possible to help them implement a template, which templates were huge for us. Even in the spring, we made it like a 5-week template, and we put it in people's Canvas courses that requested it. And then they came in August, we got templates set up and ready to go. We said, plan to be fully online just in case. So we went through best practices for online. People had 16-week course templates ready to go just in case. And thankfully, we were never moved to that where we had to go completely online. Most people were in Jason's situation, where I thought I was teaching face-to-face, but then this week I've got X number of people in quarantine and isolation. And just that in and out. But the key to that, again, Jason, was being flexible. We highly recommended in our trainings that people not try and do that really hard teaching strategy where they're trying to teach face-to-face and online synchronously at the same time. We recommended teach face-to-face, record it in Zoom, and have it available for students to watch asynchronously for those students who were quarantined and isolated. So we tried to use use that audience training time that we got, those people in front of us for 3 hours a day, to try and implement best practices in teaching as well. And we had almost 300 people go through those trainings in that short amount of time. So we were ready as much best as we could for audio visual equipment in the classrooms. And then we tried to get our faculty up and ready with some faculty development, some training.
Got it. Thank you. Rachel, over at the help desk, what did you guys do to hone your skills? And I'm guessing you probably had some new student Gorilla Geek help desk folks coming in that needed trained up. Talk to us about how you guys prepared for fall.
Yeah, so when we were online working from home during the summer and before coming back, it was a lot of what's our help desk going to look like? You know, we put up the plexiglass, and we also, a thing we do in our office, we work on computers. People bring their computer in, we can check it in and work on it. So that was a big thing, like how's that going to work? So we didn't do that for a while just for safety reasons. But we would always, you know, what's the issue? We will try and tell you what to do. We'll try and take you step by step. It was just a lot of preparation for what is this going to look like? How are we going to help people more? So it was a lot of just, you know, being flexible with everything, just trying to get it figured out. And then we would have classrooms call. They'd be like, oh, our Zoom isn't working. So we'd have to, you know, if they were in the classroom, we'd have to send them over to the CTLT. You know, just a lot of working with everyone, and communication, I think, was a really big thing in our office. We really used Teams a lot. That was a big thing that we used to communicate with each other. We could communicate with people on campus. That was a really big thing for us.
Got it. Got it. Okay, I will add one thing from the central IT perspective that we did over the summer, and that was basically, it's very similar to what we do with traditional labs, but we knew we were going to have a large demand for our software 2 application, which we use for remote application delivery to students. And we kind of scrambled to get the current version of a lot of the software titles that software 2 makes available to students, packaged and ready and tested and ready to deploy. So we were trying to do what we normally do in the summer, which is try to get as current as we can, but focusing differently. As opposed to focusing on physical labs, we were focusing more on making certain that we had the remote delivery mechanisms updated and ready to go. And then, Angela, what about final thoughts on preparing for fall?
That was one of the things I was going to say is just adding more titles to our software 2 initiative so that, you know, students, no matter where they were, could access that software, whether they were on campus or off campus using their own machine. And then the other thing is we really beefed up our external Wi-Fi. So the university set picnic tables in strategic locations all around campus, and we had beefed up our Wi-Fi when the pandemic hit so that people that didn't have Wi-Fi could come to our parking lots and things like that and access the network. But we really went all out on the internal part, the oval and those kinds of areas of the campus, so that as students were trying to stay separated and sitting at those picnic tables, you know, they might literally be in an online class in Kels Hall, go to a picnic table for a Zoom class, and then go over to McPherson for another class. So we were trying to give them a space and a safe place to do that. So beefing up our external Wi-Fi was huge. And then just lots of reminders about training and where things are and where to find things, and directing people to that central hub website for online learning and working. Lots of reminders. So.
Got it. The next question, the next slide in our presentation talks about training specifically, but pretty much every one of you mentioned training in our previous question. So Jason talked about kind of having to do ad hoc training, and then for his folks so that they could go back to their own schools. Anybody have any additional thoughts on things that worked or didn't work initially during the scramble, or trainings that were prepared and delivered in preparation for the 2020-2021 school year that we haven't already covered?
I would just say our faculty were amazing. I mean, they wanted to do the right thing and help our students. I mean, they're intrinsically driven, and I think they did a great job. I would be curious, Rachel, from a perspective that's not from the geeks perspective, but that's from a student perspective, what you might share about what you did or didn't know, or what you observed students having to learn or relearn, or even faculty learn or relearn in terms of using technology.
Yeah, I mean, I was a student I never took online classes. I always wanted to go to the classroom, so I was in that environment and with it right there. So when we went online, that was a big change for me, but I mean, all of our professors were like, we're learning this together, so don't worry, we're not going to leave you behind in the dust. So we were all right there with each other the whole time, learning. And like I did have a couple of high flex classes when we came back. So it'd be one day in the classroom and then the next we'd be online. So it was a lot of whenever you did know someone in the classroom, that was nice as well, because whenever you're online, you don't get to talk with your classmates as much. So I think that was a big thing. If we had the chat going in the Zoom, we still got to interact with each other. And then some days the mic wouldn't be working when the teacher was teaching. So I'd text someone in class, say, hey, will you tell Professor so-and-so that we can't hear anything because they're not, they didn't see our chat and we're over here crying out for help. But it was a lot of just, hey, we're just going to take it step by step and learn with each other pretty much. And everyone was super flexible. Super understanding of everything, and our professors were great with it because I mean everyone was stressed out with it.
Okay, very good. Anything else on training that anybody wants to say before we go ahead and talk about tools?
I have one last thing I'd like to mention. One thing I failed to mention in our marathon workshops in August, since I did say we are a very small department, we had deployed this past year kind of a faculty helping faculty type solution where we have, I think 11 or 12 faculty from different areas across campus, and they actually helped us with our trainings in August. And then they did follow up to our professional development online. They held Zoom sessions with different groups. They signed up to follow up with people to see if they're able to implement what we showed them in August in their classroom. And that addition to our offerings for training, having this group of peers, helping peers, is something that actually I think we may talk about on down the line. We're going to continue that process and implement it and retitle it, but we have got a great group of faculty, like Angela said, that not only are they flexible, but they want to help one another in a lot of respects. So that's a big key of training for our department going forward, is taking advantage of our experts in the field.
Got it. Thanks, Susan. Okay, talking about tools, I think the two elephants in the room are Zoom for students and Microsoft Teams internally. I think we all leverage those quite extensively. But I'd like to start with Jason and talk about other things, other maybe novel things that you discovered or that you use that might not automatically come to mind when you think about distance learning.
Well, the things that really helped me were the things that we have inside of Canvas. Studio is one of those things that I started utilizing a lot within our Canvas platform, because now it allowed me to have a more face-to-face and more personal feel I guess not face to face because it's my face to them because they're watching me via video. But it gave a little bit more of a personal feel to an online setting. And I think in the times of the pandemic, that personal feel is really what all of our students were wanting and craving during that time that they were missing out on. So that really allowed me, and that's something I'm going to continue to utilize in the future, even when we're out of the pandemic stages, hopefully here soon. Just because it allows me the opportunity to deliver material in a more personal way, and then allows students, because we have chat functions and comment functions within there where students can interact back with me or with other students in the classroom as well. And just the whole Design Plus setup that we have in Canvas really allows you to make a course more personal, a little bit more, I guess what's the term? It just looks better overall and allows them that structure to be successful in an online setting.
I think you bring up an excellent point, Jason, in that we're headed towards a new normal. We have changed forever how we do things, and maybe that's one of the silver linings of this whole thing, is that we have discovered some ways to do a more effective job of educating our students, and those things will carry forward with us as we emerge from this whole situation. Susan, how about you? What other, Jason mentioned Canvas, what other IT tools do you think were exceptionally valuable and worth a mention?
Right. And just to follow up on Jason's comment, we did purchase Canvas Studio. We had been using VidGrid, which I know Fort Hays and some other Kansas schools have been using. It didn't quite give us everything we wanted, and we made that switch really quickly right before we had all that training in August. So we got that pushed through and purchased and ready to go and train faculty on this brand new video tool, Canvas Studio. We've been very happy with it. I know I don't know, I don't really know for sure if any other Kansas schools are using Studio inside of Canvas for sure or not, but we have had a great adoption rate for Studio for video. It does a lot of the things that VidGrid did as well. We have it available now for students and faculty. Everyone can use it. So students can create video assignments and capture their presentations, and that's been really good. And then he also mentioned Design Tools, which is a City Labs design tools product that's embedded in Canvas that helps our faculty create these awesome looking polished courses that are very professional. We have templates, we push out PSU policies. They don't have to worry about updating any policies or contact information. We can dynamically control that inside of Canvas with these City Labs design tools. It's a product out of Utah State University. Very well received. That's how we train and build our online classes at Pittsburg State. So that was really, really helpful. Other than that, as far as tools, I did see in the chat, somebody asked what kind of equipment did we deploy to the classrooms? What we tried to deploy, and we ended up getting 12 rooms fairly completed fairly quickly by maybe mid-fall with a pan tilt zoom, a PTZ camera that is connected to the network. And then we found these really awesome USB microphones. And I don't know if Mike Smith's still on the call. I think Ceramonic is the name brand, but they're just a wired USB microphone that the range on those things are amazing. And our techs have gone ahead and just installed those on the side of the monitors, and it picks up student audio as well as the teachers, because a lot of faculty didn't want to use the clip-on lapel mics because they were touching it, something that a person before them may have taught in the classroom. So it kind of helped with this safety issue and keeping people comfortable in the classroom. So those are the two main pieces of equipment that we deployed in the classroom.
Got it. Thank you. Rachel, over at the help desk, you guys have tools for remote support. We've had Gorilla Geeks chat pre-pandemic. You've got the ability to do screen sharing and those kinds of things. But I'm guessing that you would say that the usage on those things went up significantly during the pandemic. Talk to us a little bit about the remote support experience and any other tools or training that you guys may have employed to help cope with that increased volume.
Yeah, so our chat, we'd actually, I don't remember when exactly, but we had updated it recently. So I'm really glad that we had done that update because the new chat that we have is, we all love it. Every single one of us. It's so much easier to use. It's so user friendly. And that was a big thing. We use that a lot. I mean, and you can have up to 5 chats on your screen at one time. It's a little overwhelming. We like to keep it down to 2. But when we did get all those chats, we could all pick them up so we weren't having to take the whole load at one time. But we used that a lot. Um, we I mean, just emailing, even if you can, just however we could reach people. We utilized that a lot when people would call. um, we'd just have to, whatever issue they had, a lot of us didn't have never actually used studio, so but we learned a lot about it just at work because we had to. So it was whenever someone had that issue, um, we did learn how to use it. So that was nice getting to know, because otherwise I would have had no clue. In the classroom, I really appreciated when professors did have the mics whenever they were on Zoom. That was a really good thing, because sometimes a teacher gets to walking around the classroom and you're like, wait, I can't hear you when you're on that side of the classroom. So the mics were a really big thing. And I, as a student, and on at the Gorilla Geeks, whenever we would have something about Canvas is just a great resource all around. When a teacher has their Canvas course set laid out nicely, they have that nice format, it just makes the class so much easier. There's a lot of things in there that they can utilize. It's just a great thing all around.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak geek speak for just a minute and talk about remote delivery of applications to students. My systems administrators were heavily involved in all of that. We had these tools in place pre-pandemic for quite a while, but our usage just skyrocketed when we transitioned a lot of students into online. And basically, we take a 3-tiered approach to be able to provide student access to applications. The front line is the tool that we've mentioned a couple of times called Software 2. We call it Gusware. That's the branding that we've done on it here at Pitt State. And basically what it allows for students to do is download and run applications on their own PC. The difference between virtual desktops and Software 2 is where the horsepower lives. With Software 2, the student's computer provides the horsepower to run the application. We basically manage licensing. We encrypt what we give them so that it's not useful after the session ends. And we control basically who has access to what. But then otherwise it's click on the application, wait a few minutes the first time for that to download, or maybe less depending on your bandwidth. And then that launches as if it was a virtualized virtual machine on the student PC. And that was our primary delivery method. Our secondary delivery method was for students who either didn't have a powerful enough PC, or they had a Mac, or they only had a Surface or some other device that wasn't compatible, that wasn't Windows based. And that was virtual desktop. So we route folks to a virtual desktop, which is nothing more than extending the monitor, keyboard, and mouse of a Windows desktop running on a server in our data center, so that they can have access like they would if they went into a physical lab and sit down at a lab PC and log in. So for those who couldn't do Software 2, we provided access to a virtual desktop, which we also have had in place for some time. And then the third and slightly more novel thing that we did was for some labs in the Kansas Technology Center, there was some highly specialized software that required some highly specialized hardware on some lab computers. And we were able to use the same traffic cop that we use for virtual desktops to route students to individual lab machines that we had created. They were basically headless workstations that were connected over the network back to our data center router. And so one of the things that students at KTC could do was to remotely log into one of those specialized devices to run the application that they needed to run. So using all three of those, we were able to provide students with what they needed to get their work done from home if they needed to. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Angela for any final thoughts on applications and anything we may have missed.
I was trying to answer Susie's question in the chat. I think that we've covered a lot of what she asked, but she did ask, what won't you let go of? And I think, Susan explained earlier that moving from Visio or from VidGrid to Canvas Studio was a huge benefit at Pitt State, and we'll probably stick with it. I do think we've talked a lot about Teams, and I think a lot of people are just thinking Teams conference, teleconferencing, video conferencing. We use Teams that's how we call each other, that's how we video conference each other, but we also use it very explicitly for file sharing and other things as well. I don't think we'll go back. I think that is how we'll operate from here on out. I think we got there much faster because of the pandemic. I think we would have gotten there eventually, but the pandemic pushed us, and I don't think people will go back to the old way of sharing files. And I mean, I can't even think about the last time that I shared a file from my hard drive. I mean, I think everybody's sharing files and editing together and collaborating that way. So that's really changed, I think, the way that we work, and kind of even shifted a little bit about how we think and approach things. So I think that those are some of the tools that I'm sure you're experiencing those things in your communities as well. I would say one thing that we learned that we wish we could have done differently is probably phones. We haven't moved to soft phones. We use Teams and those kinds of things, but I think that we've learned that a lot of our administrative folks that are the gatekeepers of offices, they didn't want to call anyone back on their personal phone, and I don't blame them. So we set up Google Voice for them and taught them how to do that, and that worked fine. But we want to do some different things there, and I know some of the other universities have already gone there, so we're investigating that. We think we have some real opportunity to improve in that area. So I don't want to talk about just all the things that were great and perfect. There were lots of things that went really well. But that's one thing I think we could have improved upon, or we can improve upon. We couldn't have at the time fiscally and just time-wise, it wouldn't have been possible. But we will make some changes in that area. But overall, just couldn't be happier with the Microsoft products, Canvas, and Software 2. Software 2, we could not have met course objectives in many courses if Software 2 had not been available. So very pleased.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to what worked and what didn't work, kind of thinking back and doing a self-assessment of the actions that we took. Questions 4 and 5 basically ask that, what worked and what didn't work. And so maybe we could, again, start with Jason and talk about, and think about things when Murphy struck or when unanticipated requirements arose. How did you deal with them? What was that process like to be able to accomplish unanticipated things, and how well did the things that we had in place perform for you?
Well, at times it was just chaos, I guess. Just as I mentioned earlier, when you just never know when you show up to a classroom how many students you were going to have at that time, whether it was quarantined or not. And if I had to go back and do something different, I absolutely, Susan mentioned in the training, they talked about not trying to do a face-to-face and Zoom session at the same time. I absolutely would not try to do that again, especially if I'm not set up for it. Trying to use a laptop, and that was, it just didn't work. It was difficult. Nobody gained anything good out of that experience right there, because I wasn't able to focus enough on that. So that's something I would do differently within it. And I would, with our face-to-face students, I would try to encourage them when we get into a situation where, okay, a majority of the class is gone, try to encourage them to get into that online setting a little bit, because at that point it becomes more meaningful for them, or provide it maybe as a one-on-one type lecture when it becomes that the class becomes that diminished. So those are some things that I would do differently. I definitely would not try to do the face-to-face and the Zoom at the same time again. Hopefully we don't need to think about doing that again, because hopefully we're not going back to that again anytime in the near future. I'm sure everybody's in agreement with that. But for the most part, the things that, as Susan and Angela had mentioned, the things that Pittsburg State did to help accommodate us as instructors and help accommodate our students really worked great for the situation that we were put in, and everything had to happen so fast. And they did a really good job of getting that stuff out to us and getting that training to us. And I know they worked really hard on that, and everybody across the campus worked really hard on that. So it was really appreciated. And I know our students appreciated the opportunity to still be in a university setting where they're learning. So that was good.
Okay, thanks, Jason. I'm hearing that we're out of time.
We're out of time.
So I guess maybe I'll ask if there are any questions that haven't been in the chat. We'll all review that and try to get answers to any of those. Anybody have any final thoughts or comments they want to make?
I'll just say one thing for moving forward. Susie had asked about what we're going to do moving forward. We are going to take advantage of all those wonderful videos that our faculty have made over the past year, and really highly encourage flipping the classroom so that when our students are in the classroom, they're doing active learning. So we're going to try and take that year's worth of video and put it to good use.
That's awesome. I just would say thank you. Thank you too. I mean, it really does take a village, and I know everyone experienced this in their universities, but we had nothing but support from everyone and every nook and cranny of campus. And I think that our faculty felt the same way. I think our students felt the same way. And I'm just grateful to work in a place that we could take on this kind of challenge and come out on top. So I'm really appreciative of everyone, students, faculty, staff, administration. It went well. And Rachel, you have been a shining star. Thank you for your help today and all of your work at the Geeks. And of course, as a student, you're outstanding and we appreciate you. So just huge gratitude.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We sure appreciate your attendance, and I guess we'll turn it back to Susie.
Just another thank you to the Pitt State University team. You all have been fantastic, and I was joking in the beginning, you win the award for the most presentations and really helping us complete out the program and make it an awesome event. So thank you so much. Our next session is going to start at 10. So if you go back to sessions, you'll see all the next ones that are up here in about 5 minutes. So thank you again. See you all.